Welcome to the Mick Dark Horror Series. Lights out. Good. Here we go.
Back then, I wasn't good at sleeping. I don't know if it was insomnia or if I just have too much energy, but I could never get a good night's rest. It was in my freshman year at college when it started. My parents bought an old house in a small neighborhood, closer to my dad's job and my high school. At first, it was just a house. It wasn't any different from the one I lived in before. If anything, it was nicer. The previous owners even left behind a piano in one of the rooms upstairs. For the first week, it was nothing but pleasant. But then, everything changed. I remember hearing footsteps in the house. I would call out to them, but nobody ever answered. Of course, me being naive, I never thought anything of it. I had even imagined it being my dog, who was still adjusting to the house. It was constantly barking in random parts of the house. That night, I woke up in a cold sweat in my room. It was pitch black, so I tried to turn on my lamp. But I couldn't move my body. I always had heard of sleep paralysis, but I didn't think it would or even could ever happen to me. I was stuck in my bed, and I tried to close my eyes, but the whispers had begun. It sounded almost like an old man, mumbling just at the foot of my bed, and there he was. A figure, shrouded in darkness. I couldn't make out any features, could only see that they were holding a knife. I told myself out loud that it wasn't real. Maybe I didn't tell myself that. Maybe I was begging to God that the person at the foot of my bed wasn't really there. Then, almost like magic, I woke up in my bed again. But this time, it was morning, and I could smell my breakfast being cooked. This would happen for the rest of the week. The figure would appear in different parts of the room while I was paralyzed. Sometimes it was near my bed. Other times it was standing in the doorway. Most commonly, however, it stood in my closet. I hadn't even opened it, as I'd been too lazy to unpack everything I had. The figure never spoke, and at the most it only mumbled inaudible nonsense. I even began to joke about it to myself, giving my sleep paralysis demon a name, Jerry. However, this wasn't the falling action of my story. It only got weirder and more concerning. I would hear noises in my room in the afternoon when I wasn't upstairs. I would also see things in the corner of my eye. One time, as I recalled, I found my dog barking at my closet. She wouldn't ever go upstairs until this moment, after which she only stayed downstairs. One day I was yelled at by my parents to put my stuff away and into the closet. I was hesitant at first, but as I had suspected, nothing was inside of it. Nothing, of course, except a water bottle. It was the same brand my family used, and it definitely hadn't had the time to collect any dust. Someone, or something, brought a water bottle from the kitchen downstairs into my bedroom closet. At that point, I was beginning to question why a figment of my imagination needed to drink water. I asked my parents, but they thought I was making a weird excuse to get out of cleaning my room. So that night, I came prepared. I plugged my charger into my phone and left the camera to record overnight, slightly hidden behind my lamp and alarm clock. And what I saw on that recording still haunts me to this day. Hours of recording passed by with nothing. I was starting to believe that I had imagined everything. But I watched it open, I watched my closet door slowly open. Then the figure came out of it. I'd slept almost well that night with no paralysis, so I watched in horror as the figure leaned over me and just watched. Finally, it retreated back to the closet, and it came back holding something. It was a bowl of food. I swear to God it was the same bowl my mom thought we forgot to take. It watched me as it ate whatever was in that bowl. After watching for a few minutes, it stretched out its arms and folded itself underneath my bed. I sped up the recording on my phone, looking for the part where it went back to the closet, the same closet that was still open at the time. It never left. The demon that lived in my closet wasn't a demon at all. It was a person, and they were still under my bed. Listening quietly, I could hear small shuffling noises under me. I could remember jumping up and running out of my room. I had never jumped that far before, making sure to be nowhere near my bed. I got to my parents' room and locked the door, and I showed them what I had just watched. I remember it like it was yesterday, the way my dad took the rifle out of the closet. It wasn't ours, but had been left behind, just like the piano. He quietly loaded it and opened the door. He crept up to my bedroom, and I watched him unload 3 rounds into my bed. When the first 2 hit, I could hear the screams of the person under it. But the final round is the one that ended it. My parents called the police and told them what happened. After the investigation, the police told my parents it was clear that the person had been living inside of the attic for some time. There were cans of food, water, and a bowl with a half-eaten rodent of some kind inside of the attic entrance that I had failed to notice was inside of my closet. And that was the end of it. Of course, that man was upset I ended his little game so early, so he came to watch me sleep sometimes, long after his death. Only this time, I could hear those low mumbles. To this day, I can remember what he said so clearly. He mumbled, "I'm hungry."
Is it too early to tell them?
The twins whined.
Come on, Grandpa. Tell us the story already.
The old man looks at their mother, his daughter, for her approval. She smiles.
All right, but promise not to do one thing.
The boy asked.
What thing?
Do you two see that valley down there?
The twins nod in agreement.
We see it.
The old man tense speaks sternly.
Never go down there. Ever. This is where the monster of my story lives.
The girl yawns.
What is this monster we've heard so little about?
Fireworks in the night sky soar throughout the air in triumphant fire. The old man lets out a chuckle, one filled with both gratitude and sadness.
Those fireworks are a part of the story, actually. I'll tell you both in the morning about it.
The twins groaned as they are guided by their mother to their tents. They had both waited 16 years to hear the story, but will have to wait one more morning. The old man sighs and walks over to the railing. He unpacks a cigarette box from his pocket and pulls one out. He finds he doesn't have his lighter. Behind him, his daughter's husband was holding the lighter.
She's worried, you know. Why do you keep using these? At least use a better brand.
I'm old. I don't have much time anyway. The lung cancer is already pretty bad as it is. What's another smoke gonna do?
I overheard something about a story.
You did. Want to hear it?
I don't think the kids will like it that I got to hear it first.
They'll be fine. The story started with a baseless rumor and a pack of Clavier brand cigarettes. The same one I smoke to this day. I was young at the time, maybe 18 when it all started. Me and my buddies hung out in town, messing with people, prank calls. You could name a list of things. The one thing we never did was go into the valley. The older folk knew something. The parents knew pieces, and we knew nothing. we didn't question it. Hell, we got pretty comfortable with the idea that we can't go out there. But my brother, he wasn't bound by any rules. He did what he wanted, and had a rule to always live to the fullest. So he was always curious about the valley, and that curiosity peaked in the summer of 1997. There was a rumor going around about something in the valley. Some nameless kid went out there, didn't come back. When the parents went out to look for them, they found nothing. Nothing except a pair of footprints in the mud. It was too big to be a child, also too small to be an adult. Once my brother heard it, he went nuts. Hell, I can remember what he even said, even today. Come on, you wimps. Who tells us what to do? Let's bring back something for the town to talk about for a good few years. He always had a way with words. He said them so persuasively that he actually managed to get us all to do it. The five of us grabbed some basic supplies and went on our way. We had to slip by a few town troopers that guarded the valley, but we made it. We walked for a few good hours until Roy, who isn't the ideal image of physical health, needed to take a break. We sat around and messed with each other for a bit. My brother even managed to sneak our dad's favorite cigarettes, a box of Claviers. So unheard of, I'm pretty sure they don't exist anymore. This box might be the last of its kind. We had a fun time until we all noticed Roy wasn't munching down on his bag of chips. He somehow disappeared without any of us seeing him leave. We called out and heard him call back to us in a panic. He was above us, way above us. I'd say about 30 feet up a tree. We hollered for him to come down, and he almost made it. But a branch gave up under him, and he tumbled down. He broke his leg coming down, broke the other one on the landing. We all panicked except for my brother, who stuffed a belt in Roy's mouth. We all agreed to go back and get help. That's when another one of us disappeared without a trace. We called out to them. They called back, this time buried in the ground a few yards away. This happened to all of us for hours. I barely even remember it. But that's the thing. It doesn't want you to remember. At some point, the total of our group went from 5 to 2. It was my brother and I against whatever the hell it was. We both escaped, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here to tell the tale. But we didn't escape mentally. I still feel like I'm down there, having blackouts and popping up in random places as if I was in a trance. We also didn't escape before seeing the devil that did this. It was human in shape, but it was anything but human. It had red glowing eyes that we saw clearly through the night. It had large deer horns and a large sagging jaw. I'd imagine it used it to eat my old friends, because it was drooling blood. Once we got back to the town, the old folk went up to us to figure out what happened. Those old farts basically said it was our fault for bothering the Brantry of the valley.
The husband snickered.
You're a good storyteller.
It isn't just a story. It happened.
So how come nobody's gotten a picture or a shot or anything like that?
It's agile and only makes itself seen when it wants.
Yeah, all right.
Why don't you believe me? I'm telling you the story because I do exist.
The husband, confused, asks,
What?
You aren't looking at the old man anymore.
The husband looked around. He was in an unfamiliar setting, a dark cave filled to the brim with bones upon bones of animals and people. The only thing that looked out of place was an elegant piano that had no place there at the current time. He spins around, terrified, and trips backwards. His skull was pierced by a large, sharpened bone sticking out of the ground, instantly killing him. The creature dropped from the ceiling and stared at the empty space in your direction. Maybe instead, it was looking directly at you, not from the cave, but from the room you are most likely inside of, waiting for its opportunity, watching as you miss the subtle changes of the setting around you.
I'm watching and waiting for you to turn around and see my face, the face of endless despair. Look in my eyes. I hunger for you. Look at my teeth as they grind in anticipation. Look at my hands, the long claws waiting to be used. Look at me. I want to be recognized again. I am the Branchy, and I demand to be seen.
During the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange, human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused in rural New York State and once found in Idaho, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with a creature of unknown origin. Emotions range from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remained powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get some excerpts from their upcoming book. A Suicide Note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form. Once, again, I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I can never, ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose. The one loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Linny, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name. A journal entry translated from Spanish, 1880. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. his wet hand. I will not sleep. His voice was dead. A Mariner's Log, 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake. From a witness, 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip from Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized, told him I thought he got out of bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly, his knee almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for a half second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, there was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked into the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled around the side of the bed, and then crawled quickly in a flailing sort of motion right along the bed, until it was less than a foot from my husband's face. The creature was completely silent for about 30 seconds, or probably closer to 5. It just seemed like a while, just looking at my husband. The creature then placed its hand on his knee and ran into the hallway, leading to the kids' room. I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before it hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it, crouching and hunched over about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall and saw my daughter Clara. The creature ran down the stairs while my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was very badly injured and spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the Rake." My husband drove his car into a lake that night while rushing our daughters to the hospital. They did not survive. Being in a small town, news got around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at first, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and began talking about our experiences. He knew of 2 other people in New York who had seen the creature we now refer to as the Rake. It took the 4 of us about 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believe to be the accounts of the Rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal had an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages and never mentioned again. A ship's log explained nothing of the encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the Rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature's visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people also mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led us to wonder if the Rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed left it running all night, every night for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in my bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the second week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blurring through the recording at 8 times the normal speed. This still took almost an hour every day. On the first day of the third week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the Rake. I can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone listen to it yet. All I know is that I've heard it before, and I now believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason, the voice in the recorder immediately brings me back to that moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head make me very upset. I have not seen the Rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night I'll wake up to see him staring at me.